Welcome to the bold analysis. I want to say and repeat in this podcast yet again, it is indeed a big shame for ODM party to cheer police brutality. And even as the pride of the broad-based deal with William Ruto to have stabilized the country. But if that deal entailed cheering killing of the dissenting voices in the country, then I think they can only do better by calling William Ruto to order. And I believe you can still side with government. You can still side with the state. But the moment you drop your values on quest for justice and equality, then really you've lost your relevance. Today, I'm going to show you how Tony Geshoka and Omogeni Attack senator really descended on Odour Kaluma, and Odour Kaluma nearly walked out of a live interview because of trying to defend what actually is an illegality. Kindly subscribe to our channel, click the notification bell and like our videos. Thank you very much for supporting this podcast. We do this each and every day because of your support, and continue supporting this channel. Asanteni sana. In this podcast, we normally have in-depth analysis and we give it an in-depth perspective. We don't just rush through analysis. Now, without much ado, Odour Kaluma today was in a panel interview in TV47 on Thursday morning. And while he defends his decision, or rather their decision, for Odinga to back President Ruto, in his own words, he says that they salvaged the country from sinking into a military rule, or rather a lawless society. But to that extent, they can have their reasons. However, I honestly believe, and I have analyzed here, that our constitution is very elaborate on what happens when the president and the deputy president is not there. There is nothing like military takeover. What is supposed to happen is speaker to take over, and then an election is called. But the whole leadership of the country have been selling the military fear to the people and not talking of an early election. This is the soundbite of Kaluma.
Look at Article 146 sub Article 2 in terms of what happens when we have a vacancy in the offices of the president and the deputy president. When you have a vacancy in the office of the president and the deputy president is there, the deputy president takes over. When both the president and the deputy were not to be there, remember at that time we were talking about Kufa driver, Kufa Makanga. Then the constitution says that the provision I've told you, that the Speaker of the National Assembly takes over for 60 days. Within those 60 days, there must be an election. Did we have an IEBC? It was just constituted the other day. And so, at the 60th day, this country was not going to have leadership. People have said the military were to take over. But they are thinking of the military as the only agency with the force to take over then. But assume it would be the military, or then an unconstitutional rule then comes into the country. Look at the countries which have gone in that direction. My brother Dibal, Somalia taped in 1991. It has not reset and gotten back to the rail 35 years later. Look at countries which have gone from constitutional rule to a rule other than by the constitution. It will confirm to you across the world and across Africa that they take virtually our whole generation is wiped before we would come back and have this beautiful document. And that is the context in which we sat as a political party, and later, you remember, as a coalition. And it was not an easy decision, but I believe it was a difficult, yet the most patriotic decision. Let me tell Kenyans.
And I agree with members of this channel that sometimes get to me and say, Kevin, it makes me sick when I hear the voices of the people like Cornered Kaluma. Even if he's been one of the big champions of the broad-based government, and entirely not based on principle, not based on any value, but because it is our time to eat. And it is in my view that to that extent, yes, let's give you credit for stabilizing the country. Of course, it's true, no one knew what would have happened thereafter. But how about when it comes to defending, when it comes to killing of young people, of protesters, and orders, strange orders of shooting in the leg, and strange charges of terrorism, that is where you draw the line. And I really associate the sentiments of Omogeni saying that ODM cannot afford to cheer those in power over the police killings.
We were in university with Kaluma. We did demonstrations.
No, you were ahead of me.
We did I was ahead of him, but yes, we were in university at the same time. We did demonstrations. I never saw President Moi's regime shoot and kill any student, and they can bear me witness. We were there with Kabando, Munya, Moses, Kuria, Mungatana, and the likes. We stormed the city many times, but the government of the day never shot and killed any university student at that time. So to listen to my colleague, a lawyer of repute and high standing, say that the country is on the right trajectory when we are killing young people, 60 of them in 2 months, is a tragedy for the nation. Depal. I joined this party ODM because I identified with the ideals of the party leader, Raila Amolo Odinga, a man we respect, a man who has fought and advocated for good governance for many years. And we hold him in very high respect. But I cannot come to this studio, and I want this to be on record. I want YouTube to record that I don't agree with the way the government is behaving in responding to demonstrations. Dibal, you cannot be in a country where a man who has carried the Bible and so on to defend the Constitution and the laws of this country gives an edict to the police telling them, if you find demonstrators, shoot them in the leg first. Take them to the hospital, then on their way they can go to courts of law. I don't think Honorable Kaluma here, who has a wife and children, would like to see his or her child being shot merely because that child stepped out to register a disagreement with the government of the day by picketing.
And in this measure, this is what I see. If you saved the country from sinking into a military rule, why is it not right now to save the country from brazen police brutality? And I think it is the Raila Odinga team are doing themselves a disservice to that party, even to a region. Let me say this. These police killings do not know tribe. They don't know tribe. People have been killed in different parts of the country. And at this time, the said saviors of the country needed to make themselves more useful by just adding their voice, amplifying the calls for this brutality to come to an end. The calls for this police brutality to come to an end. I'm talking about this because not so much have happened. Remember, I saw Cornered Kaluma was actually defending the Ejilagat. The boy was killed. Albert was coming from his county. It is a matter of question now. Are you defending because you're defending government, or you are defending because if I defend is how you can make your daily bread? It is a bit shameless for people who have salaries, people who have an income. Even by opposing or by amplifying the voices against police brutality, you still make yourself very relevant in the Kenyan political ecosystem. But such people have been reduced to president's lapdog. It is a big indictment on the people of Kenya. Respected leaders under the guise of supporting the president have lost their footing and now turned to be cans of preaching ethnic vitriol just to seek the president's attention. How desperate can people who claim to be learned, people who claim to be independent, people who claim to have fought for injustice, fought against injustice and inequalities, reduce themselves to tribal cans that only amplify and desperately try to seek the president's attention? What for?
The majority of MPs and senators, they started buying people from the opposition in order that they could tilt the scales against the will of the people exercised in a democratic election. Since that time, William Ruto has gathered pieces of silver and an appetite to buy everybody in the opposition that he can in order to defeat the electoral processes that were elected to have one, a government and an opposition. And the reason this constitution creates a multi-party democracy is because the opposition is meant to oppose the government of the day in order that people get a better government. My problem with the ODM decision of broad-based government is not about the policies or the economics. It's because there is no policeman, there is no watchdog in Parliament or in the Senate that can be able to hold to account the government for the people. And that is a constitutional nightmare, because once the people have done an election after 5 years, they have nothing else other than a recall of MPs or waiting for the next general election. So I want to say to the young people of this nation who are protesting against the broad-based government that you are right under the law, you are right under the Bill of Rights. But as William Shakespeare says, you know, a coward just dies once. So if death must be the price, it's not going to be the first time. Tom Mboya, yes. Degama Pinto, Awins Kode, there have been so many gallant sons of this nation, Robert Ouko, and many who have shed blood in order that this country becomes accountable to the rule of law and better governance, the killing of corruption and so forth. So let there be a Rex Masai. So yes, let there be another person from another place. But let this not descend that all of a sudden there is one part of Mount Kenya against the nation because young people are rising up. Let us say first of all that any killing of any young person, any abduction of any young person is immoral, it is wrong, it is unlawful, it's unconstitutional. If we begin to agree that there are certain basic rights and wrongs, that there are certain things which we must uphold, the dignity of how we live with each other, that dignity is what is going to allow us to be able to aspire to take this country further. So I want to end by saying, you know, Frank Fanon said this about generations, that every generation must fulfill its promise. And I'm happy to hear senior lawyer Omogeni and Kaluma went to Nairobi University. I was in Europe and went so on. But we have had our time. made mistakes or not, we had our time to fulfill our aspirations and live our dreams. We cannot be the people who sit on our children's future. We cannot be the people that kill their hopes. Right or wrong, let them dream, but let them be at peace, and let them not fear their government, let them not fear their president, let them not fear that, in fact, I remember when the ICC came, 4 people were charged: a sitting president, Uhuru Kenyatta, a police commissioner, Muhammad Ali, a head of civil service, Odour, and William Ruto were taken to the ICC by a letter written by the Orange Democratic Party, in part my brother Anyang' Nyong'o, raising the questions about the killings that happened in Naivasha and parts of the Rift Valley following the disputed 2007. So ODM has a history of raising in the international order the question of human rights. In fact, it was because of the letter of ODM that the ICC proceedings went ahead.
And I watched that interview. Cornered Kaluma was very, he was very uncomfortable. And it's increasingly becoming difficult. We will say it and repeat it here. What is killing the ODM party, and why the country is reading betrayal? I've always said, Raila Odinga have had handshakes with Uhuru Kenyatta and other leaders. They've had handshakes. What made this one very difficult, what has made this one more worse, is the way the leaders have behaved around power. It's been a big shame. For lack of a better word, this has been a big shame. For ODM to posture to have saved the country from a military rule, and at the same time cheering the rulers on killing the young souls, killing its people, it is not something that is worth cheering. And on this one, these are the things that when you raise, people try to get tribal virtuals, tribal profiles. So and so is saying because it's not this, so and so is saying because of that. I even listened to a video by the state sent Gaucho to respond to Sifuna. And the kind of things Gaucho was saying was just say, that Sifuna is being paid by Omunyoro. So Sifuna was working for Mount Kenya billionaires, that Sifuna has always undermined the party, this and that. And no one is comfortable to face the reality. No one is comfortable to face the reality. This is the point. Is police brutality an issue? Yes. Was it there in the past? Yes. Someone will ask, why didn't he ask? After the handshake with Uhuru Kenyatta in 2017, Raila Odinga had an opportunity to seek compensation. He actually went quiet. He went quiet on it. Never talked about it. Now this one, after this handshake, people have died even after, even for the 2023 people are killed. Hata hii watu wamekufa, ameenda pale. It's just a piece of paper, a press statement to newsroom, or seeking compensation, or this and that, or this and that. Well, in real sense, what is packaged as quest for justice is actually seen as a ploy to manufacture handshake and get a share of government. And this is why it is a big blunder for ODM to cheer police brutality. Why? Raila supporters, a big support base, have died on this. I remember 2017, when Raila came from the US. I remember the long journey from JKIA to town. By the way, very different reports indicate that more than even 100 people might have been killed that day. And the reports that after that, Uhuru Kenyatta changed his mind and said, no more confrontation. It is time to look for Odinga. Said that is not going to be, it is after that there was that confrontation with Uhuru Kenyatta, with William Ruto, where Uhuru Kenyatta said, now I can even leave power. If it has to get to this, then I can even leave. Save the nation. I saved the nation from military rule. Sounds very good for the ear. Sounds like a caring father. But where is the father? You saved the country from a military rule because you saved William Ruto from losing power. But where is the father when the children are killed? That's why I insist it is a blunder. Legitimizing the UDA ills gives the ODM burden of incumbency. And for those, I see a clique of leaders saying Raila should go and vie. Raila Odinga cannot vie. Should not even think about getting to the ballot in 2027. The kind of rejection he can face in that ballot will be legendary. And I think they're giving party loyalists more ground to deal, party rebels more ground to deal and leave the party. I've heard Babu Owino say, and I think it's not a bad position. If you are in his position, this is something that will not be a shocker. He said he will vie for the governorship of Nairobi whether he gets the backing of the party or not. And I think he's very right on that. He said it. Whether he gets the party ticket or not, he will be there for it. Ladies and gentlemen, that is my take. Let's meet in the next. Asanteni.